Hey everybody, welcome to Worship Uncoiled. I am pretending to laugh at an opener video that I just showed that I didn't show because we can't be together. But if you have a funny video that you've seen on Facebook, go watch it now. Hey, every week we start off with the thing that we call the draw. So now in my head, I'm playing the draw theme song that we normally play. So if you want to get signed up for the draw, make sure you go and either comment on this video or send me an email at cjmustin@fccbrazil.org. We'll get your name put in and do a drawing at 8 o'clock. Hey, every week we also do a thing that we call the challenge. And so now I'm playing the challenge theme song and video in my head. Here's the way the challenge is going to work this week. It involves absolutely no physical activity. But I am missing opener videos. And so the person that can post to this post or send me an email at cjmustin@fccbrazil.org or just send me a link to the funniest video that I deem the funniest will be the winner of the challenge. So find those funny videos, either post them here or send them to my email address at cjmustin@fccbrazil.org. And at 8 o'clock, I will watch them all and pick the funniest. And the person that sends me the funniest video will win a prize. So hopefully we get lots of funny videos posted that we can all enjoy and laugh at together. Hey, kingdom work never stops. I talk about kingdom work all the time because I want you to use your gifts and abilities for God's kingdom. We learned about this at CIY, and we are planning on going to CIY Move and Mix this summer, but our CIY Move dates have changed. CIY in Wheaton, Illinois has been canceled, and so we are now going to CIY in Ohio on June 14th through the 19th. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that. Check out these videos for CIY. Keep doing your kingdom work. It is so encouraging to see you guys going out there and doing kingdom work and changing this world for God's kingdom. Now we're entering into a time of worship. We're going to do the same thing that we've been doing every week. We're going to post some links to the songs that we're going to sing. And so I encourage you to just check out these links and sing along if you feel willing, or just sit and listen and allow God to speak to you through these words. So last week we started this series that I'm calling the Summer of Influence. And I focused on influencing ourselves first. I called this the foundational level of influence. And the way we do this is we influence ourselves by revering Christ as Lord in our heart. And what that does is it gives us a foundational level that will impact the way that we influence others and the way that others influence us. When we hear voices that talk about who we are, we're going to go back to who Christ says we are. When we look at people, we're going to go back to the way that Christ views them. And so this foundational level of influence is so important as we move into the summer of influence. I want to show you something. Follow me. This is our chain link fence. I installed this fence shortly after we moved into the house, and I was really particular about how I installed it. I dug down 3 feet into the ground for each pole, and I set the pole in the ground and then surrounded each pole with a layer of concrete at the very bottom of the hole. I did this so that the foundation would be strong because I wanted to make sure that if anything ever fell on our fence, the poles would stay solid. And with the support of one another, those poles would hold the fence up. The foundation was important, and the support of other poles was important. You know, not too long ago, last year, we had this huge oak tree fall, the top of an oak tree fall out of that tree right there. And it fell right on the fence right here. And it bent the top pole. But because there was a solid foundation and because there was the support of multiple poles, the fence stood strong. Tonight we're going to talk about the influencing our friends and how a support of friends, when we have that solid foundation, can help us stand strong even when the storms of life come. Because the storms of life are going to come. And when we have a solid foundation and a good support of friends, we will be able to stand strong even in the midst of storms. As I think about the friends that I've had in the past, it's interesting to look back at the way that we've influenced each other. And the thing about influence is that we influence each other not because we were just trying to influence each other, but just because we were friends. You know, I had a childhood friend that influenced me to be a Chicago Cubs fan. I played some baseball, and this is a picture of me as a baseball player in Pee Wee and as a Pittsburgh Pirate. But if there was a team that I could choose, it was Chicago Cubs, because my friend was a Chicago Cubs fan. When I was in high school, I had a friend that influenced me to be more outgoing, just have tons of school spirit. And so we would start the student section at football games and basketball games and run up and down the track after touchdowns or jump up and put threes on the wall after three-pointers. In college, I had a friend that influenced me to start editing videos just for fun. And it's because of that influence that I'm able to put this video together for you tonight. The interesting thing about that is we didn't go into friendship because we wanted to influence each other. We influenced each other because we were friends. There's a really cool story of friendship in 1 Samuel chapter 18 about David and Jonathan. Now let me give you a little backstory. David, you might know him as either a shepherd or the guy who killed Goliath or a great king of Israel. And Jonathan is Saul's son, who was the current king of Israel. At this point in David's life, David has just killed Goliath. He's come out of being a shepherd, he just killed Goliath, and he's brought before Saul to talk about this great victory. And Saul sees how incredible he is as an army fighter, and he says, all right, you're in my army. And it started this incredible friendship between David and Jonathan. In 1 Samuel chapter 18, in verses 1 through 4, it says this: After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David. He loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return to his father's house. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off his robe he was wearing and gave it to David along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. This was a big deal. We don't know the specifics of how this friendship formed, but we do know that it was a very strong friendship. They formed this covenant, which was like a promise. And Jonathan gave David his robe, his tunic, his sword, his belt, and his bow. And these just weren't any regular articles of clothing or weapons. These were royal clothes and royal weapons. This was a big deal. And David and Jonathan, their friendship blossomed. And they continued to grow as friends. But let's see how the influence plays out in the lives of David and Jonathan. See, because what happens is Saul turns away from God. Saul was Jonathan's father. He turned away from God. And God was with David. And so Saul very quickly became jealous of David. And look what happens in chapter 19, starting in verse 1. Saul told his son Jonathan and all the attendants to kill David. Jonathan's put in a pretty tough spot here. Is he going to listen to his father, the king, who is going to possibly hand him the kingdom next? Or is he going to help David? Which person has more influence in Jonathan's life? If you continue in chapter 19, it says, But Jonathan was very fond of David and warned him, My father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard tomorrow, go into hiding and stay there. The friendship of David and Jonathan continues. But Jonathan's dad, Saul, just continues to try to kill David. And it gets to the point where Jonathan and David have to make a decision. And Jonathan goes to his dad and asks if he is going to try to kill David, and Saul just goes crazy and says yes. And so Jonathan and David share one last goodbye as Jonathan again saves David and sends him out into hiding. In chapter 20 of 1 Samuel, starting in verse 42, it says, Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. Then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town. Jonathan and David share this goodbye, and David goes off into hiding. And a few chapters later, they have one more meeting together as friends before Jonathan passes away in battle. In 23, starting in verse 15, it says, While David was at Horesh in the desert of Ziph, he learned that Saul had come to take his life. And Saul's son Jonathan went to David at Horesh and helped him find strength in God. Don't be afraid, Jonathan said. My father Saul will not lay a hand on you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be second to you. Even my father Saul knows this. The two of them made a covenant before the Lord. Then Jonathan went home, but David remained at Horesh. It's pretty incredible that David had such influence with Jonathan. It begs the question, how do we form that influence amongst our own friends? I think there are three things in the midst of friendship that lead to that type of influence. The first is this. Friends spend time together. Influence forms when friends spend time together. You know, we read over these verses so quickly, but from the time that David and Jonathan formed their friendship to the time that they said goodbye, 15 years had passed. 15 years of conversations, 15 years of memories, 15 years of laughter together. I imagine that if you think about your best friend, it's someone that you spend a lot of time with. See, influence happens when we spend time together. The more time we spend together, the more comfortable we are. The more comfortable we are, the more influence we have. The more memories we make, the more influence we have. And so the first way to simply form influence is to simply spend time together. The second thing is this. Friends connect on a deep level. David and Jonathan connected on a deep level. Jonathan saved David's life multiple times when his dad Saul tried to kill David. Jonathan and David shared promises together. And I love that last time that Jonathan and David got together, that Jonathan came to David and comforted him and encouraged him. Think about your best friend. I bet it's someone that you have talked to about things that you would not talk to anyone else about. I bet it's someone that you have had conversations that you wouldn't have conversations with anyone else about. I bet you have connected on a deep level. And connection on a deep level leads to influence. The third thing is this. Stay true to yourself. You see, influences are going to come from the outside and try to impact you one way or the other. And for Jonathan, he stayed true to himself. When his dad turned away from God, Jonathan stayed with God. When his dad tried to kill David, Jonathan stayed with David. Jonathan was a man that stayed true to himself. And when you think about your best friend, It's probably someone that can just be themselves. Someone that doesn't care what other people think about them. Someone that can just be themselves around you. And when we stay true to ourselves, when we have that foundation like we talked about last week, that foundation allows us to be true no matter what, which leads to deeper influence amongst our friends. Influence happens among friends when we spend time together, when we connect on a deep level, and when we stay true to ourselves. Here's the truth of the matter. You are going to impact one another simply because you're friends. We don't enter a friendship with the intention of influencing someone. We are influenced and we influence others because we enter into friendships. And so, practical challenges this week, when you think about being intentional about influencing your friends, is this. Influence starts with yourself. It starts with that foundation, and so check yourself. How are you at influencing yourself? How are you at staying true to who you are, staying true to that foundation, staying true to revering God in your heart? And the second thing is this. Look at your friendships. Check the way that you are influencing them and the way that they are influencing you. Maybe there needs to be some changes. I want to encourage you that when our foundation is right, we will have influence, and outside influences will affect us less. We will be influencers amongst our friends simply because we're friends. And so I encourage you to get that foundation right and check your own influence amongst your friendships. Be like David and Jonathan, whose foundation was firm, who spent time together, connected on a deep level, and stayed true to themselves.
I'm Clark. I'm Tate. I'm Brinkley.
And this is Worship Uncoiled News.
Thank you for joining us online tonight. Every Friday we have the Zoom meeting at 2 o'clock. So make sure you join us.
Worship Uncoiled Online will meet again next week, so make sure to join us at 6.
DIY move-in mix are still happening this summer, but the DIY move dates have changed. Now we are going to Ohio June 14th through 19th. Sign up by emailing CJ.